Today we're going to take a look at how to engrave a wine glass on the rotary attachment. The wine glass is typically quite easy because we don't have anything like a handle in the way or logos or preformed names or anything like that, like we would normally have on, say, a coffee mug or a Yeti mug or some type of round item like that. Round items such as a rolling pin or maybe a highball glass would be sort of similar types of round items that would be very easy to locate our logos on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a look, show you how to set up the rotary attachment, how to put the wine glass in the rotary attachment, how to set the job up in CorelDraw, and then send it through to the Trotec laser system so that the rotary attachment can turn the mug and the laser can engrave it. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Speedy 300. This is the rotary attachment for the Speedy 300. I'll show you how to mount this in the Speedy 300 so that the rotary attachment is set up properly. You notice that we've got two hooks on the end here. They're going to clamp into the ruler, and we're going to butt up the other end to the ruler. So you notice that the power is off, which it has to be, and I push the head to the back here. I'm now going to place the rotary attachment inside the machine. You notice that the bed is all the way down too. And I'm going to put the two hooks that hook into the ruler in the back of the machine here, so they hook in, and press this up against the top left-hand corner so that there's movement there's no movement this way and there's no movement that way. On the older 300 we have this type of a connector here that's going to plug in down here. On the new 300s you got a round connector that'll plug in over right here. Again, make sure the power is off and the table is down. I'm going to turn the power on to the machine. You notice the machine homing out. Now the one thing that's going to do, it's going to do its standard home out in the corner, but then it's going to pop out. Just notice how it pops out, and the rotary attachment went back to its home position. So again, that's a classic setup. That's a classic setup in terms of where the laser should be when the rotary attachment is actually plugged in. So make sure that that head comes down and it's almost in line with this bracket here for the angle. Okay, you don't want it right in the angle. You don't want it right in line with the bracket because it could hit it once, sometimes if you ever came back this way. So there's a bit of an offset here. But again, if it stayed up at the top corner here, then to me that means that the rotary attachment's not hooked up properly. Okay, so make sure that it comes down here, and then if I want, then I can move this across. So I can move the XY back and forth. Let me zoom out here a little bit. So I can press this button here and that'll move the head across. And if I bring the table up, so as I bring the table up, you notice that the red dot pointer is in the middle of my attachment. So it'll be actually right in the middle of my round item, which would be the maximum height of the actual round item itself. Now you notice here that I actually have an adjustment here, so this will slide left and right. This side is fixed. Okay, and as you remember from the first video, I actually have the ability to change these around if I want. I actually have the ability, because the pitch on the screw is standard, I can actually make my own holding jigs if I want, and we do have some people that do that if they're looking to hold some oddball items. But for the most part, the cones work pretty good. And again, this being fixed, this is your adjustment here, and again I can slide this back and forth. You can lock it in right here, and then you've got a spring loaded right here. Okay. When I want to put in my wine glass. I'm just going to place it in here. I'm going to slide this way. And again, I normally give it a little bit of pressure, but you'll notice here now that I've got good gripping here. I'm going to just take it out of suspend mode. And now if I use the up and down keys, that's the turn of the rotary attachment. So again, I'm turning my mug, and that's back to the start position. And again, I can move it this way if I want. And if I'm rotating, I'm normally going to rotate to the top like. So that's the beginning. And then now you notice that the mug is turning to the back. So that's actually progressing down the page. And I'll show that to you a little later in this video. So normally I want that right at the top, because if you look on job control, you'll see that my laser head is at the top of the page. So I'm ready to go now. Everything's set up. The only thing I need to do here is adjust my angle. And again, if you notice here, I'm not too bad for doing a logo right here, but if I want to come up this way a little bit, now I actually have an angle like this. It's actually angling down. So I might actually have to change these around so that the mug is going facing this way, and then I can lift this angle up, and basically we'll get this more level. Okay. What you can do if you want, sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually open up the front door and I'll just take a look across to see how the angle's set up. So I'll grave one like this, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll turn it around the other way, and then we'll do one the other way. So I'm going to get my wine glass ready to go, and I'm going to place some transfer mask on it. As I mentioned in the previous video, what we want to do is take our transfer mask, and then I want to roll it out. I'm going to bring it out like this. And again, this is assuming that we're doing, you know, a bunch of wine glasses. So I'm just basically going to place this down on the bed, and then I'm going to pull this out. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to just cut it in half. And then I'm going to go across here, and here, and here, and here. And if I want to take the first one, I can take that. And I have a nice rectangle ready to put on my wine glass. And it doesn't really matter where I put it on here, because I have no reference handle or anything like that. I'm just going to place it on there. Again, try to get this as smooth. Try not to get too many creases on here. If you get a bubble or something like that, you can always come over here and just put a little bit of a hole in it, and that sometimes will get rid of the actual crease. If you get the crease, you can always take this back up again, smooth it out, and there we go. So I have a nice working area here, and I'm going to put my logo in this area right here. Sometimes the problem when you're laser engraving anything is sort of in your mind visualizing how big the logo is going to be. Again, we've got various techniques to do that, and it's relatively easy on a flat item. But again, like I said in my original video, the problem we have is we can't superimpose flat artwork on a three-dimensional round item. So we really have to, in our minds, sort of try to guess as to how big the logo is going to be. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can do this. One of the easier ways, sometimes if I've got enough time and I'm doing a few of them, is I'll actually print out the logo and I'll superimpose it on the glass. So for example, here's my glass, my wine glass right here, and then what I'll do is I'll take the logo and I'll just put it on the glass, and that'll give me kind of an idea of how big the logo is going to be on the glass. And if I want, I could actually, I actually made one that was a bit bigger, and again, I can sort of move these back and forth just to see visually as to which one is more appealing for what I want to do. And again, like I said, placement is always very, very important. You know, I don't want the logo all the way up here. I want the logo here. And by printing it out like this, it gives me a relatively good idea as to the size that the logo is going to be on the glass. Okay. Sometimes what you can also do is if you're doing two logos, and we'll get a little bit more into this when I do the coffee mug, because it's a little bit more critical with the coffee mug. But this is kind of good for doing this wine glass where I want to do one logo on one side and one logo on the other side. So what I can do with this page is I can actually just take it and then just wrap it around here, and then I get a visualization on where both the logos are going to be on the glass. Okay, and this is very critical in that we need to know what the circumference of the actual glass is going to be. So in this case here, this glass is 11.5 inches. So my paper is a little bit smaller than 11.5, so I've got to fudge it a little bit. But for the most part, I can get away with it by just making sure that, you know, I account for the space in the back here. But again, doing something like this is a quick way of getting a good visualization how the logos are going to appear on your glass. Now, when we're trying to figure out the circumference, or in this case, you know, the diameter of the glass, as I mentioned in my first video, the problem with this glass is it's tapered. So I really don't want to measure up here, and then we come down to the bottom here. So I can't really measure at the bottom. So something like a seamstress ruler is actually very critical for getting a proper circumference of the actual glass. And again, I can just do that by wrapping this around and then pulling these together, and then I get myself the actual circumference of the actual glass, which in this case is 11.5 inches. Now this has a little bit of tapered, so you know if I'm 11.5, you know, I might be I might be 11.25 on the top, and I might be 11.75 on the bottom. You know, that's a good, you know, good median. Normally the glasses aren't that much of a variation, but 1/4 inch isn't that much. Your logo should look relatively consistent, you know, through the difference, the variety of the circumferences. But again, you know, it's a lot better than trying to guess with a ruler as what the circumference is. You could also have a set of calipers, as I have here, and again, we can turn that on, and we can open that up, and we can sort of try to get, you know, a circumference on this, which is roughly about 3.5 inches. And again, you know, I'm going to multiply that by pi, and that's going to give me basically a similar type of circumference. Now that I've got the transfer mask on my glass, the one thing that I do sort of more out of habit than anything, because when I'm doing a wine glass, I don't really need to go through this step. But what I like to do is just kind of mark with a pen just my midpoint on the transfer mask. And again, as you can see here, it's just a small plus symbol. And what I can do is I can use that as my lineup. What you could also do, let's assume that, you know, I wanted this logo here to go on here. I can just take this and I can say, you know, I want this to be right there, and I want this to be right there, and bring it down just a little bit there, one there. So I sort of have basically now a area that's going to be my logo. It doesn't have to be perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put this in the mug like this, and then the glass is going to turn to the back of the laser like this. So this will be my top, that's my top, and this is my bottom. If I put it in this way, then it's going to be the opposite. That's going to be my top, and that's going to be my bottom. So again, the top and the bottom are going to be dictated depending on which way the glass goes into the rotary attachment, whether it goes in this way or whether it goes in this way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to basically place my wine glass in the holder. Again, I've adjusted these cones up to a proper height. I don't have to clear anything, so where they are is not really that big of a deal. But I'm going to place this in here. I'm going to slide this along and then make sure that's seated properly in there, and then tighten it up. Okay. Now, Let's assume that this is my starting position right here, because remember the glass is going to move to the back. So what I want to do is I want to move, let's just bring that in. I want to move this across. Well, I can actually do it by hand if I want, or I can turn it back on. And let's assume that let's say that that's the middle of my logo. So let's make it about there. Now, I want it to be here. Now, you cannot move this up or down because that moves the head down. So what you need to do is you need to hold this cone right here and then just turn this so that the glass moves, and you can see the red pointer come to my starting position on where I want to start the logo. Okay, I'm going to start it right about there. I got a mark there, but this should be down a little bit this way because I'm going to be halfway on the glass here. Okay, so let's assume that's where we want my logo. If I want, as a final check, I could do something like this and say that's right about the middle right there. Looks pretty good to me. And now I'm ready to go. As I mentioned, there's two ways basically to set the job up in CorelDraw or Illustrator for that matter. I'm going to do a minimize the job size for this test, this part of the tutorial, and then what I'll do in the next one, I will show you if you had the full, if you specified the diameter of the wine glass in the print driver, and I'll show you how that sets up for the setup for the wine glass. So all I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to select the logo. Now, this orientation of the logo will be dictated by how the cones are set up in the rotary attachment in terms of the direction of the glass. The glass top is over here on the rotary attachment and the bottom is over here. This means that for the way I'm doing it right now, this has to be 180. And you'll get a little bit better idea why this has to be this way when I send the job over to the job control software. If I had the cones the other way, then basically I would have the logo facing straight up. So all you're really going to do here is just go File, Print. And just before I go on, just notice again, like I said, the page size is 12 by 12. When you're using the minimize the job size, all you want is the page size to be bigger than the logo itself. Okay, so this is a 1.7 inch logo and the page size is 12 by 12. So I'm going to go File, Print, which is Control P, or you could go up to File, Print. Again, I've got the Trotec driver picked here in the printer and the amount and the printers that I've got. I'm going to say Preferences. I've got page size of 12 by 12, which is the page size in Corel. I have minimized the job size. So what's going to happen now is the job size isn't going to be 12 by 12, which would have normally be dictated by the page size. It's going to be the size of the logo. So I'm not going to have any border around the logo. And this makes it relatively easy for setup. So again, I've got minimize the job size selected here. And if I click on the material settings, I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to select standard. This is an 80 watt system. I'm going to go basically 40 speed and 100 power and basically 1 pass, and the Z offset's going to be here, 0, 0. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to run at 500 DPI. I'm going to say click here, and then I'm going to go File, Print. And if I get over job control here, and basically you'll notice that I've got just a normal bed size here. Now you notice up here, you'll see that I've actually got the laser head right here, and it's in basically the location of where we sort of want it for the middle of the actual logo on the glass. The rotary attachment logo it is not activated here, so that tells me that the rotary is not available or it's not set up properly in job control. That can easily be done. Let's go to Settings, Options. I'm going to go to accessories, rotary attachment. The diameter of the glass is 3.5 inches, which basically when I use the micrometer, that's what I got. Again, I want to return to start position. That's typically what I want to do. I don't want to go back to the 0, position, and I don't want it stopping wherever it's finished. I want the glass to come back basically to start position, because if I'm doing more than one mug, then I always want the red dot pointer to be there so that I can line up my glass every time for the next job, because the red dot pointer will be right at the starting position. Okay, the rotation speed, really what this is indicating is how fast does the glass turn back to the 0 position. Sometimes you don't want it to go too fast, because the glass, if it went too fast, could fall off. So again, we can slow the rotation speed setting right here. I'm going to say OK. Now you'll notice that the rotary attachment becomes active here. And I now have the red dot pointer, which is indicated by the crosshairs right here of the red dot pointer on the glass. So if I take this and I start moving the glass, watch what happens to the crosshairs. So as I move down the glass this way, you can see I'm rotating to the back. The crosshairs, which is the red dot pointer, are actually being displayed on the screen. Okay, so I can go all the way down, and I could theoretically go all the way around. And if I zoom out a bit here, just to get a little bit better idea, that's the full circumference of the glass once I get to the bottom. So again, I can go back, and it stops right at where I started, right up here. So again, very, very important to understand that the crosshairs are related to the red dot pointer, and what I can do to locate is I can move this red dot pointer wherever I want, and then I can bring the logo to it, which I'll show you where I'm going to go. Now, in the case of the wine glass, there's nothing here in terms of handles or logos or anything like that, so it really doesn't matter where I put this on the glass in terms of the circumference, as long as I'm in the middle of where I want to be, so that, you know, the top and the bottom, you know, stay within the confines of where I want it to be, then this is fine. It becomes a little bit more of a little bit harder to figure out if we've got a logo there on the other side, or a handle or something like that, and we're trying to line up to it. In the case here, I'm not going to line up. So what I want to do is I want to use the red dot pointer just basically as the starting point of my job. And again, you can see here, if I come down to the bottom here, there's a logo that I just sent over. I'm going to bring it over, and you notice here that it's pointing in the right direction. And if I bring this up, then what's going to happen is the laser is going to start firing exactly at the time of when I press the start. The rotary attachment is not going to move. If I was to bring it down here, then this space here, this will be the glass will turn this much, and then it'll start etching. In this case, because I don't really care where it goes, I'm just going to have it start right away. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is basically make sure that we're focused. And again, I might just sort of pick a halfway point for that. You'll notice in the screen here, I do have a Z value here, which is 5.33. So again, if I'm going to do this wine glass again, I don't necessarily need the focus tool. I can just sort of move the table up and down until I get 5.33. And again, a lot of times what I'll do with a glass is I'll just record this in the template file that I've saved in Corel, that this is the Z setting. Okay, and all I really need to do now is just basically start the job up, and off I go. So the one thing to remember here is that I'm starting at the top, and you can see the glass starting to progress towards the back of the machine. Okay, and the thing to remember on this is that I only went with 40%. Normally you could go 70 or something, if you know, that would be normal if I had a larger glass. The thing to remember on these types of systems is because the logo is relatively small, I'm lucky if I'm getting at 40 or 50% speed. And this is why it's very critical that you have the 5G motor on this particular laser, because that affects the start-stop. So because it has a very high pull in terms of the G-force, then I can start and stop very quickly and go the other way. So that keeps my etching time very, very fast. Okay, and you can see on the bottom of the screen here, I'm at a minute and 9 seconds for basically doing this logo here. Okay, if you wanted to go faster, you can dump the DPI down to 333. A lot of times you may not notice the difference, and if you want to go faster, sometimes that may help you out too. Okay, but you can see basically that the job is being done. The job comes back to the starting position, so if I want to put in my next mug, I have my red dot pointer that I can line up with again. So another way that you can actually do the logo, we can allow the print driver to figure out the actual circumference of the glass if we know the diameter. So I've got the circumference or the diameter that I figured out with the calipers. I'm going to multiply it by pi, and that gives me about 11 inches. Okay, so I placed my image on the page here. I'm going to bring this down to 1.7 by 1.7. You can see that I'm in the middle of the page here. I'm going to leave the logo like this. And again, this logo orientation, again, is dependent on which way the cone is facing. So again, same thing. The way it's set right now is the cone, the top of the glass is here. If I do a 180 on this, then the cone is on this side. So let's assume the top of the wine glass is on this side here. So I'm going to go File, Print. I'm basically going to go up to Preferences. I'm going to turn off Minimize the Job Size. I'm going to put the rotary attachment in, and it's asking me for the diameter of the actual glass I'm working with, or round item, which again is going to be 3.5. Same power and speed settings, same resolution. Say OK, go File, Print, Job Control. If I come down here, here's the job right here. Now, you notice here right now I'm on a flat page. Rotary attachment's not active. So when I bring the job in here, you'll notice that the page size is 11 inches, which is the number that I came up with here. So again, the software is thinking the same way I am. Now, the problem that we have here is that if I do it this way, look where the logo is. It's in the middle of the page. So if we remember, the problem is that this is going to be a really large area of turn before it starts to laser engrave. Okay. The other problem that I don't really like about using this, there are sometimes where I like to use this, but I don't like to use this in this situation, is I could remedy this position issue very quickly if I had the original logo that I did with the minimize the job size. Again, you notice here, because I have it just as the page size is the size of the logo, if I want to move this up, I can. In the case of this logo here, I can't move it up, right? Because I'm at the extremities or the extent of the page, so I can't go up. I can go left to right, but I can't go up. So I'm really kind of stuck here in terms of the way I've done this. So the way to get around this, again, we can remove this, and we can go back into Corel. So typically, I'm going to go back to Corel here. And what I want to do is I want to make this 2 inches for the height. I want to give it a little bit of space around the logo. I don't have to be real tight in the case of this one, this job here. And the width is going to be 11. Okay, and I want to turn this because remember everything gets turned 90 degrees. So I can take this and I need to rotate this 180. And in this case here, this has to go to this end here. Okay. This is the bottom of the page. This is the top of the page. When I bring this in to the actual job control software. Okay. So bottom of the page, top of the page. I'm going to go File, Print, Preferences. I have the rotary attachment selected here. The diameter is 3.5. I've changed my height to 2 inches, which is what I made my page size. And you notice the circumference is automatically selected here, which is basically 11 inches. Okay, so basically I'm just going to say, okay, print. And if I come up to job control, here's the job. Now this job has the rotary setup embedded into it, so the job control automatically turn on the rotary accessory here for me. So all I have to do is drag the job out, and you'll notice it turns, and you'll notice that the page size is the size of the 11 inches. And if I zoom in, then my logo is basically right at the top of the page. Okay, so again, this is very important for us to understand. If I'm in CorelDraw, if my top of my glass was here, then this would have been back at 0, and we would have done it this way. So when I bring it in, then this logo would have been facing that way when it came in. So just basically remember, this is the top of the page, and if I rotate it up like this, you'll notice that this logo starts facing this way. So if that's where the top of the logo is on the left side, then basically that's going to be lined up properly. So again, you could do that. Sometimes it's easier to do that when we're figuring multiple logos out on a page and everything like that. But again, it's really dependent on the job that you're working on. Okay, so that's really the two ways that normally I would send a job over to the rotary attachment from the job control software, just if I want to start engraving right at the top of the page. Okay, now let's assume that the glass is going the opposite way, so the bottom is here in the cone and the top is here, so 180 degrees difference from the original setup. So what I'm going to do on this one is this is basically going to be 0, so it's going to be as if I was printing it normally, and then I'm going to go File, Print. So everything else is the same. I can go into the preference setting here and minimize the job size. I still have the 12 by 12 inch size, 500 dpi. Again, click Print. Now, just a little bit of a trick for you. If you're doing this on a regular basis and you're dragging logos or back and forth, or you're dropping a couple of different logos on the same glass, don't remove this, because if you remove this, then you'll notice I've gone out of the rotary mode. So what you want to do is say Options. We'll go back to the rotary mode. I'll take the logo that we originally had. I'll bring it out. Now it's facing the proper direction that it was supposed to be when we did the first example. If I want to bring another logo in and get rid of this logo, leave the logo there, grab the new logo, bring it out, and then I can right click on this and say Remove. This is kind of a nice too, because what we'll get into is using double logos or text and a logo in different locations on the glass, and we can basically do that quite easily, when the logos are small like this with no border on them or anything like that. So I'm going to right click on it, remove it. Now if the cones are going the opposite way of what we did in the first example, now you see that the logo is pointing the right way. And again, this is quite important that we remember this. So again, I can bring this up. If I'm looking for a standard location, then I can bring a guide rule out here, a guide rule out here, and bring this down here and say this is my maximum area. And then if I want, I can go save this and save as, and I can call it wine glass, no stem. And the next time I bring this job in, so if I close this logo down, or this job down, and I reopen this job, you'll notice that everything is saved the way it was, which is quite nice if I'm using this as a template, because if I'm using a different logo here, then I can just bring the new logo in and then just right click on this and get rid of the template logo that's sitting in there for me. Okay, so really something important to remember in terms of how you rotate the image in Corel and how it appears pointing either left or pointing right. And these are, just think about this before you go and bring it when you're actually working on the job in Corel. So here's the glass that I've done here. And again, you can see that it's very nicely done. And again, I'm sort of just in that area where the top of the logo is just starting to shrink a little bit more than the bottom. And this again, as I mentioned to you, is because of the fact that this mug is tapered, as you can see, okay? And it's very, very critical that we always take this into account. Somebody asked me about this a while ago, and what I'll try to do is I'll try to do basically a tutorial to kind of show you how to get around this a little bit using an envelope command. And we'll take a look at how to sort of try to take this distortion away a little bit. But again, it's always just something to consider when you're doing the logo. Again, if I had moved it even farther down and farther up, then that distortion would have got a lot more. So again, it's certainly something to take into account. But I've got a really nice finish on the logo here. There's no glass sharding or anything. It feels very, very nice. You can see that. You can see the logo quite nice. And again, this is an expensive glass. I know some people talk about cheap glass and everything like that, but I tend to, through my experience, I don't really find that that's a very good law to sort of go by. It doesn't really matter what glass you're etching now. I even have lots of success using crystal glass too. I know a lot of people say that that doesn't work, but I have no problems doing crystal. I think I broke one glass in my life, and it was because I accidentally had a vector mode going, and I cracked the glass because I tried to cut the glass instead of etching it. So again, that's really something to remember when you're actually working with the glass. Definitely transfer tape, wet newspaper, soap. Those things certainly help out in the finish of the glass. In this next example, I'm actually going to take the same wine glass, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put two logos on it. I'm going to put one on the front, and then I'm going to put one exactly in line with it at 180 degrees on the back. Now, most people typically, when they do a glass, they only do the logo on the front. And sometimes I think this is more out of just they're afraid of having anything more complicated. Hopefully these two methods of positioning in the Trotec software will make you feel a lot more comfortable putting two logos on, or a logo in text, or on the other side, whatever. Because if you think about it, if you're, let's say you're getting $5, you know, for doing the logo on the front side of a glass, just as an example. If you put something on the other side, now potentially you're going to get another $5. So now you're going to get $10 instead of $5. And it really needs to be a conversation that you have with the client to say the price is $5 for one logo on the front, and it's $10 or $8 or $7.50 if you want to put a second logo or text on the back side, because you've already got them committed to putting one logo on there. And if you start charging a little bit more money for added value on the actual round, on the glass or the round item or whatever you're doing it on, then that's more money in your pocket. It doesn't take you any more time in a lot of situations to do that. So it's really something that you need to you know, at least having your repertoire that you ask the customer. And the actual filling out or the actual job generation is relatively easy, especially if you're going to do 50 or 100 glasses. You know, I mean, if you're doing a wedding and you're doing all the wine glasses for the wedding, you know, it's nice that you can put the bride and groom's name on the front. But what about if you put all the guests' names on the back of each glass? And again, that's really, really easy to do in this on this machine in the Trotec system. And it's really something that allows you to make some more money to do it, because now the customer is saying, oh, you know, it's only going to cost me an extra $100 and I get to personalize everything even that much more, right? Because now I've got my name on there, and I've also got the person that's at the wedding, their name is on there, and their name and spouse is on there. And again, it's easy for you to do, and it's extra money, because, you know, if you did, let's say you did 8 weddings and you generated an extra $100 or $200 because you asked the question to do double-sided engraving on the wine glasses or whatever they're gonna use, then you're all of a sudden you're generating an extra $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, $2,000 in your pocket. And, you know, for a lot of people, that's a lot of money, you know. And again, you know, if you're leasing the machine, that could be 3 or 4 payments, you know, for the month. So again, it doesn't take you a lot to figure this out, to do this. Just practice a couple of times. I'm going to show you it's really, really simple to do this on the Trotec system. So let's get on with it, and let's take a look at how we can put 2 logos on a glass and line them up perfectly. So for this example, I'm going to actually put a logo here and a logo over on the other side. Now, typically what you're going to do is you're going to have a logo at 0 degrees on your arc, like on a circle, and then you'll have the other logo at 180 degrees, which is basically halfway around the other side. So they're gonna line up when we do this setup. Typically on a wine glass, or for that matter, any glass, and even some other items, I normally just do a visual lineup. You know, I sort of look at this being the starting point, and then I look at the other side and I say, okay, well, that's halfway around here. And that seems to work out pretty good, you know, for most applications. And I can tell you I'm probably about 95% correct in terms of getting my lineup. It's not perfect. Most people don't really need it to be perfect. But I'm going to show you how to do it perfectly, because there will be times where you're doing a round item, say apart from a company, or somebody needs that exact location marked, and you're going to need to know how to figure it. You can't just eyeball it up. So in this case here, I'm going to actually use a measuring tape, and I'm going to come up with some exact coordinates so that we can get this lined up perfectly. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to take a pen. I've got the transfer tape on here right now. I'm going to make a plus symbol in the middle. It doesn't really matter where it goes on the glass. I do need to have a starting point. You know, if I had a logo somewhere else, then, you know, maybe I'm going to have to measure that off so that I'm going to be correctly distanced from the logo if you had something over here. But in this case here, I'm just going to put something here, and I'm going to put something on the opposite side so that they're lined up. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got a plus symbol on that on the transfer mask, and I want to put one on the opposite side. Okay, and that's easy to do. And again, I'm bringing out the old-fashioned method here, which is basically just a seamstress ruler, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the starting point of where the mark was, and I'm going to wrap all the way around and make sure that you stay within the confines of where the logo is going to go, because remember, this glass is tapered, so I don't want to measure the top or the bottom, because if I'm going to put the logo here, then I may not be perfect. So again, if I take this and I pull this tight, you can see it's about 11.5 inches. Okay, for the circumference. Okay, and as we know, the diameter is going to be 11.5 divided by pi, which is 3.14. But for the marking out of the center points, I need to do this. So if it's 11.5, half of that is going to be basically, it's going to be 5.75. So all I really need to do now is to keep that on there, come across here to 5.5, which is right here, and I need to make a mark there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to make a mark here. And that center point should be right in the center of the area where you think the logo is going to go. Okay, so basically I'm going to be down here, right about there. Okay, and if I look over here, that's the center point. So again, if I sort of look at that just by eye, that's perfect. That's lined up exactly right. And what I'm going to do is, these are going to be the centers of the logo. So if I have my logo, then the logo is going to go, it's not going to go here or start here or start there. What it's going to do is it's going to be right in the middle. Okay, and then basically if I pull this around, then the other one will be in the middle here. Okay, so and if I wanted to, I could, I could draw something here on a piece of paper, and then I could make sure they line up. But typically I find this is really the easiest way of doing something. Okay, because all I really need to do in this case, if I'm doing like 100 of these wine glasses, I only have to get the first one set up. Okay, because the rest of them are just going to go in. It doesn't really matter where the mark is on here for the other 99, because once I've set the first one in, I've got the spacing, but the distance between the two logos, so they're bang right on. The next one I put in, it's going to go on. It doesn't really matter whether it goes here, because the other one's going to go here. So as long as I've got the transfer tape in the proper spot, I just stick it in and off I go. And again, I've made the transfer tape a little bit longer than I normally would have made it, because I just to give you a visual of the glass so you can sort of see it. But again, because if you're trying to conserve transfer tape, then certainly you can notch off a little bit of this. Okay, so that's really what I want to do for the first method. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take a logo and I'm going to take some text and I'm going to line them up. The logo will be on the one side and the text will be on the other side. I could just use the same logo, but I'm thinking it's probably easier just for this example that I use a logo and some text. Because a lot of times when you do a job, it's not just going to be two logos, it's probably going to be, some text and some text, or a logo and some text, or something like that. So I'm going to select the job I want to work, the logo I want to work with first. So I'm going to go File, Print. And I'm going to go Selection. And I'm going to go to Preferences. And again, I've got the width, which is 11.5, which is basically the page, which is 11 inches. I've got minimize the job size set up here. I've got the height is 2 inches of the page. I've got my settings here all done, which is 100 power, 40. Again, we've used these before. 500 DPI. I'm going to say OK. Now, when I print, it's just going to send just the logo over, which is what I want it to do. And the logo's over. I'm going to go back to Corel. I want to actually now send over my name, which I'm going to go File, Print. The name is going to go over as a separate job. And again, because I have the minimize the job size, the plate size is going to become the size of my name. Print, and off I go. Now what I've got on the screen now is I've actually got the crosshairs set up here. Let's get rid of this. We don't really need that. Get that out of the way. And I'm going to put the logo on the actual page here, but I need the red dot pointer to be lined up first. So I'm going to take the glass here and I'm actually going to place this in the holders. And I'm going to turn this across here and get this relatively close. I need to do one more step here. I'm not going to put that in line right yet. And I'm going to grab my logo. First of all, let's just get the rotary attachment working here. Let's go to Options, Accessory, Rotary. Okay. And you can see the crosshairs here. So let's grab the logo here, bring it in. Now, if you remember from the first part of this video, I'd put this logo right up the top here. However, I'm going to use the red dot pointer and I'm measuring from the middle. And typically what I want to do is I need to bring this down so that it's in the middle. Okay, so basically what I normally do is I normally create a little bit of a gap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the down arrow here, and that's going to turn the mug. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the down arrow and that's going to rotate the mug, and if you look on the screen here you can see the head coming down. I want to bring this down just a little bit past center, and you see that snaps right into position. Okay, so now I'm measuring from the middle. Now if I go back to the glass, what I want to do is I want to hold the cone here, and I'm going to turn the mug so that the red dot pointer lines up with the crosshair that I made on the actual glass there. Okay, so what that means now is the crosshair is lined up with the red dot pointer is lined up with the crosshair, and I want it to be the middle of my logo. So if I have my logo here, then basically what's going to happen is it's going to be something like this. Okay, so it's going to be that. Okay, so hopefully everybody understands that. Okay, now what I want to do here before I go to the next, I put my name in, I want to press the F8 key, and that creates a marker at that position, and I'll explain that in a second after we save the job and everything like that. So the next thing I want to do again is hit the down arrow on the positioning arrow, and I want to spin this all the way around until it comes in line with the crosshair, the plus symbol that I made. The important thing to remember here is I'm lining up with this line here. I'm not lining up with this line here. Okay, because I want it to be even with the previous one, and therefore when I turn the mug it's going to be even. The only thing I need to make sure is that I'm lined up with this line going that way. I normally do a plus symbol on both sides because sometimes you grab the glass and you never know which plus symbol you're going to line up with, so I just make two. But in this case here, all I'm really concerned about is the line going that way, and that's what I want to line up with. Okay, if I zoom out, you notice here that I've actually got this position here. Again, if you want, you can press the F8 key right now, and I've created a point right here, a marker here for that location. Here's my text, and again the text gets turned and I snap in, and you notice how it snaps, so it's in the middle. Okay, so now what I've got is I've actually got the position now of the actual logo and the position of the name. And typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this 2 logo wine glass. Okay, now the reason for the markers here is that if I move this out of the way, these markers get saved with the job. Okay, so, and that's very important, because if I want to use this as a template job, I need the markers in here so that I can grab a logo and then just snap it right to the marker. Right? Okay, it's over here, it snaps. So if I'm doing a different logo or different text, I have to make sure that's there, because you'll notice here that I don't have the crosshair anymore up here. It's down here. But let's assume that, let's say I move this crosshair. Let's move it back up a little bit. Okay, so now I don't have the crosshair to snap to anymore. I can snap to the marker. Right? So again, now what I've done is I've created a template that is perfectly set up for this wine glass. So if I'm doing this wine glass on a regular basis,
then what happens is now I've got a template. The next time I go to do wine glasses, all I need to do is just put on the transfer tape. I don't even have to do any markings or anything like that. I just stick it in and press go. Okay, put in the different logo or the different names or whatever, and that's what you need to do. The only issue that you're going to have is that if perchance that I want to put the text up here, maybe let's move this out of the way, move that over here. Again, you've got to be careful here because this text may be too long and it may not allow you to snap because it's going to hit the edge of the page. So if you perceive that that's going to happen, then that marker would need to be down a little bit farther here, because basically you want to give yourself enough position. So you may have to, again, think about the job, think about the setup before you go ahead and do it. In this case here, the way I've got it set, that's going to go there, and then this is going to snap to there. Okay, so it's really not that big of a deal. So if I close the job, and I say no, I've already saw, I can save it again and then I go file open, and I grab the 2 logo wine job. You notice here that the logo is saved here. And again, I wouldn't even really need to have the logo or the text there. It would just save the markers here in the job. But I always like to have some sort of a holding logo or a text or something like that. It makes it a little bit easier when you want to set it up. Okay, so really all I need to do now is basically just send the job right over to the laser machine. Okay, and watch, this will go back up, the crosshairs, because I got to start up. You got to turn the mug back to get to the top of the page. Okay, so I'm going to hit the run button here and say, oh, again, I only have one job selected. It's asking me, do I want to just do the selected job or all jobs? I want to do all jobs. Oop. I'm just going to hit the run button here. And again, I'm just going to say all jobs. Again, the glass is going to come back because I have to get it back to the starting point. You can see straight to the top, and then off it goes. So very critical that you think about the way the job is going to be done, because if you think properly, now what I've created is a template, and anytime else I do this job, then that template will work for this wine glass. And again, that's why it's always nice when you're using your glasses and you're not using somebody else's glasses, because a lot of times if you're using a particular, rolling pin or a different, a glass or whatever you're using, a Yeti mug or whatever, if you're using the same thing all the time, then you can create a template for it. And then when you go to do it, it's just really just a matter of putting the logos or the text in. And just remember that this is a 2 logo setup. But if I wanted just to do one logo or just one text, if the text isn't there or the logo's not there, like if I remove this text right here, it's just going to engrave that. So I could even use this as a 1 logo job too. So again, it's always important to think about the jobs, the setups, and everything like that, because a lot of times it can create big time savers for you. So again, I'm just going through and we're just engraving, that the text there. You're getting an idea too on how long it's going to take to do the job here. I'm at 1 minute and 46 seconds, and we're just going through the etching the text, and we should be pretty well done. I would think probably about 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Oh, lied. A bit longer. $221. Okay, so you can see now it's also gone back to the where I'd started the job, and normally what I would have done is I would have started at the top, and then it would have just rotated all the way back to the starting point, which would have been the top of the page.
The second method that we're going to use is we're actually going to create the page size in Corel of the actual circumference of the actual glass itself. So what we're going to do is, instead of using job control for positioning, I'm going to use the page layout for positioning. I don't typically like to use this type of method, but again, it's an alternative method, and I always try to show everybody as much options as I can, just to give you different scenarios, because there will be times if you need to use the software and you need precise location, then certainly the method of using the red dot pointer doesn't necessarily always get us in the perfect position. There may be times where you need to measure things out. If you're using a graduated type ruler that's wrapped around, or you need locations that need to be perfectly put in a spot, then certainly this method probably would be better for doing that. But typically, just when I'm doing Yetis or glass or whatever, the first method is my preferred method. But we'll take a look at this method so that, again, it gives you an idea so that you can use both methods. Again, I'm just using a bit of a smaller glass here because what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to print out the setup here, just to sort of show you what I was going to do. So what's going to happen is this page here will be the page size that I set up in Corel. And again, this is a method that sometimes I use just so that people can visualize, what's going on, and you can see it. And again, if I look at this, I can see the logos are lined up on the back side. I can see the logo here. I can see the, I can see the logo here. I can see the logo on the back side, in my case, the front side. You're on the back side here. But again, what it allows us to do is just to get a quick visual representation, because if I put this on and I notice the logo here and then the other logo is right in the front here, right, or say you can see, so you can see, let's say the logo is there and the other logo is right here, well, then something is wrong. So again, it's kind of nice when I've wrapped these around, I've just taped it just so that I can get that visual, so I can allow you to see the visual of the paper on here. Okay, and sometimes this is a good training technique, for you. Again, you got to keep it under, again, if your printer supports 11/17, then it's even better. The printer I'm using only has 11 by 8.5 by 11, so ultimately I stuck with a glass that was a little bit smaller just so I could have the full wrap. But just remember that I really don't even need the full wrap, because again, you can see that typically if I print these two, there are mugs that we use that like a handled mug. I don't need to go all the way around because the handle's in the way. All I need to do is go from where the handle starts all the way around to where the handle stops. So again, if it is a little bit more than 11 inches, then it's not really that big of a deal. So, but again, this is a good visual tool to allow you to sort of see what's happening.
Okay, so now we're going to use the page layout. So what you have to understand here is that I'm going to set the page size up to 10.25 because that was the circumference of the actual glass itself, and I'm going to use a page height of 1.5. Again, they're already set up, as you can see here. Just remember that the page signifies the glass if we flatten the glass out. Okay, so if I cut a piece of glass and this wine glass in half and I folded it out, this would be the length of it right here. The question really becomes, where do I put my logo? Well, in the case of the setup of the Trotec system, the logo is going to go over here. You notice that because my cone, the top of my glass is over here, I'm going to have the logo facing up in the normal position, and I want to get this relatively close right to the edge here. Remember, any space here is going to be a turn of the actual mug. So what I want to do, though, from a positioning standpoint, is I want to get that as close as I can to the edge, but not beyond the edge, or not right on the edge. You always have to be 0.05 away from the edge, typically, when you're sending it over. So again, I'm just going to be, really close here. and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this logo and I got to bring the second one over here. And that's relatively easy to do. What I'm going to do, I've opened up the transformation. So if you want to see where this is, it's under Window, Dockers, Transformation. I'm using CorelDraw. Go to Position. And again, what we want to do is I want to move this over to the halfway point so that these two are lined up. So it's going to be somewhere around here. Remember, the job is going to start here. The next logo is going to be somewhere here because this distance here, if I wrap this all the way around, this end comes over to here. So I need an even space here and the same even space right here. Okay, so what you can do is you can come in here and we go into Calculator. There's a calculator here. And we're going to take 10.25 divided by 2, which is going to be 5.125. Right here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to do a relative positional move, and I'm going to go on the X. Remember, X is left and right, and Y is north and south. And I'm going to move this 5.125 to the left. Now, remember, I'm going to the left, so this is not positive, it's minus. So it's going to be minus 5.125. And I'm going to say apply, and I've got my second logo here. Now remember that this distance here has to be the same as this distance here. Okay, and a way we can do that is just easily with a rectangle. Just come in here and draw a rectangle, and that is, let's just make it 0. And so you can see that, let's make this a little bit longer. So if I duplicate this, it should be the same over here. And there we are. So you can see that the spacing now is even. Remember, this is going to come all the way over here if we're working on a rotary attachment. Okay. So this is my start point here, and this is my end point over here. Okay. So all I need to do now is go File, Print. I'm going to come in here. Normally this would be deactivated. Again, you can put in 10.25 here. You can put in the rotary attachment. It automatically figures out what the diameter is. Okay, I've got the page height of 1.5. I got my settings all done. I hit the OK button, hit File, Print. And if I come over to Job Control, so if I come over to Job Control, basically you can see I've got it set up here. I'm going to come in here. I don't have to activate the rotary because the rotary information is embedded in the file. Okay, so I can grab this and I can bring it out, and when I bring it out, it'll actually automatically resize the page based on the circumference, which in this case is 10.25. Okay, so if I zoom in on this, you can see that page is right here at the top. Now let's go over to the machine. You can see that I now have the red dot pointer right here. And again, if I want, I can move this over a little bit. You can see on the screen that this will adjust. But what I want it to do is I want to be in the middle. I want the glass to be relatively close to the edge of the transfer mask. So again, you can just hold the cone here and you can turn this if you want to get it in the right location. Okay, it doesn't have to be right at the top here. I mean, I've got a fairly large piece here, so it's going to etch somewhere around here. So I want to make sure I catch the transfer tape on the back side. Turn it on. So all I really need to do now is just basically position this with the pointer here. So basically now all I need to do is I can just zoom in on here and I can bring this into the middle. Line it up that way. and then I can actually run the job. So again, you notice that the glass never rotated because I'm starting at the top of the page and the logo's at the top of the page. And again, we got a countdown window here, time here, in terms of the time. It says 2 minutes and 4 seconds, so that's about what we're going to be for the logo. So you can see I've hit the transfer mask properly, and again it's etching the second logo on there now. And again, the speed's not, this hasn't been sped up. I'm doing this in real time just so you get an idea of how long it takes to do the job. Okay, it is counting on the screen here. So we're getting close to being halfway, just need a little bit more time and the job will be done. As you can see, the come back to basically the starting position here. Again, if you want to check just to make sure that the logos are going to be on the transfer tape, that's quite easy to do. Again, I can zoom out here, and what I can do is if we zoom in on here, so you can see that what I can do is if I move this, you can see that I'm clearing the area here. And again, if I come around to the other one, you can see that basically I'm in the area here for this one. And if I zoom down here, and I'm still on the transfer tape. So again, it's you know, again, you can use the red dot pointer up here just to make sure that you're working, and then if you want to go and rerun the job, you can just turn right back, and then in this case back to the starting position.
Well, that concludes the video on doing the wine glass. Again, I've given you an example of doing one logo on the wine glass and two logos. I've used two methods for each one of the setups that I did. Which one you use, again, that's up to you. I can make a case for both, why you would use one over the other one, and that will certainly be based on the situation in terms of what the client is asking you to etch. It's always good to know both methods, because if you know both methods, then there may be a time where just sort of visually lining things up isn't the way to do it. And if you don't know the other method, you don't practice it, then it may be hard for you to figure that other method up. There are times, if you're just doing the wine glass, where just visually lining up is good enough. A lot of times that just works for me. But as I mentioned before, there are times where the client needs that precise location, and that may be better suited to use the second method that we showed for doing the logo placement. Whatever one you use, make sure you practice it. If you like the videos, certainly hit the like button on the bottom. If you want to subscribe to the channel, go ahead. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment field. And remember, watch the introductory video first, watch this video second. Which video you look at next is really going to be dependent on what else you want to look at. But certainly things that we've talked about in the first video and this video, I may gloss over them a little bit on the next videos, because I'm going to be assuming that you've watched both videos. So make sure you watch the introductory video first, this video second, and then go to one of the other videos. So again, if you want to look at the Eddy mug or you want to look at the rolling pin, that's great. But you need to look at this video and you need to look at the introductory video so that you've got the groundwork, so that you understand what we're talking about in the next videos that come up. Anyways, have a good day. Happy lasering.